This week and essentially the rest of the month and next month is all about going nowhere fast. As everything starts to move into fire signs and we're getting all of this ramped up energy, everything is slowing down and getting ready for a retrograde. And that includes the Mercury retrograde we're gonna have and the Mars retrograde. But it's really this week where we get the energy of like, hey, I feel like I'm going really fast, but I'm not going anywhere at all. And in my opinion, that really starts this week because this week we have the sun entering Sagittarius as one of our highlights. But we have another major highlight this week, which is Pluto is ingressing into Aquarius, where it's going to be. We've had Pluto in and out of Aquarius over the past 2 years, but now it is, well, I should say a year and a half, but Pluto's moving into Aquarius. It's going to permanently stay there for the next 20 or so years. We also have the sun trining Neptune as a highlight this week. And we also have a Venus-Saturn sextile this week. So let's go ahead and start talking about it. Welcome back to the Astrology Report. My name is Cam White and I'm a professional astrologer and I'm an expert in talking about the transits and what's going to happen in your life. And I love doing this. And if you're new to my channel, thank you for checking it out. Make sure you like this video. It helps me out. Comment below. Let me know what you're looking forward to this week, what you're not looking forward to, and just what's going on in your life. But we're talking about November 18th through November 24th. Of 2024. And we start Monday off with the moon ingressing into Cancer, and then it's going to make an opposition to Venus and make a trine to Saturn. And then we get our first highlight of the week, which is the sun trining Neptune. I'm really liking Monday. Monday's got a nice vibe to it. As the moon ingresses into Cancer, the moon's home sign is in Cancer. So there's a little bit of like, protecting ourselves, feeling good. It's kind of like, when you sit in the jacuzzi for a little while or go into a sauna for a little while, there's something about just like feeling good afterwards about it. Now, as the moon's in Cancer, there is a little bit more of a focus on the day-to-day into, hey, what needs do we have to take care of? What are the things that we just legitimately need to take care of? It's kind of like, hey, you need to change that laundry from the washer into the dryer before it gets moldy. I don't ever do that, but that's something that you should do with the moon in Cancer. That's kind of like the vibe is like, hey, take care of this before it gets gross. But the moon is going to go opposite Venus. And I like this because the moon just contacting Venus, it doesn't really matter what aspect it is always typically beneficial. But with this opposition, it's like, hey, the moon in Cancer needs to get its needs met, but Venus is all about like fun and connection and pleasure. And she's in Capricorn, which is about like business and being serious. And they're kind of at odds with one another, but this is like hey, we could balance this out. Like, how can we meet our needs and also have fun doing the things that like we need to grind to do, if that makes sense. So with the moon going opposite Venus, there's a lot about meeting our needs, but with a fun essence to it. And when the moon then makes a trine to Saturn, there's just like this getting things done. And it's in a these are water signs. So it's not like earth signs where we're, super focused, we're locked in. The water signs are very adaptable. They're very kind of all over the place. They're very emotional. But what I like about Monday is it's a little watery, but it's like productive watery, which isn't always what you see when you get all this stuff. But anyway, we also have the sun making a trine to Neptune. A lot of the sun and trine to Neptune is like a slightly confused essence. There is a little bit of some like lost in the sauce energy or feeling a little bit locked in. The one thing I will say about the sun trining Neptune is the sun's in Scorpio. And when Scorpio is all about trying to see underneath the surface, trying to look for hidden intentions. And that's good, right? Like that's a good thing to have. But when the sun or when you have Scorpio stuff trining Neptune, transits, there's this kind of like maybe reading a little bit too deep, maybe going off false intel, maybe being deceived a little bit, or even deceiving yourself off of what you're looking at. So again, I want you to like, if you feel like you're seeing something, don't necessarily just assume that it's real. There might be a level of deception, and that's why I put like slightly confused. But what I do like about the sun trining Neptune is the sun is our willpower and our vitality. And so like, if the sun is in Scorpio, it's like, it always reminds me of like revenge is the best motivator. And the sun is in Scorpio where like, again, revenge is an energy that we can use to empower our willpower, our sense of will, if that makes sense. And the sun trining Neptune is like when you can romanticize, and when I say romanticize or idealize or contort what your situation is, what the situation you want to be into is, you can use that as a motivating factor. Like for example, I get these gym edits, these like bro gym edits where it's like lock in, winter arc, blah, 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 blah. And what they do is they create this image of like suffering but they create it in a way that's like stoic in the sense of like, hey, suffering, like you need to suffer and that suffer is going to give you that growth that you need. And I bring this up because like Neptune is so good at distorting an image and all of these Instagram reels, Parker, I'll see if I could send some to her for her to edit in, but they are like a little bit more darker. They're a little bit like black and gray, like a Jocko Willink's kind of like a podcast. And they just create this image of like intensity, and they feed like your soul in order to like, this is what you need to do. And that's what Monday is good for, is like tapping into that sense of yourself of like, hey, let's feel the pain. Well, there's this meme I just saw making fun of Jocko Willink. It's like, oh, you broke your legs? Good. Like, that's what you should be doing. That's kind of the vibe. Now, as we get into Tuesday, the moon is void. I'm going to say technically what a void moon is when the moon is no longer making any aspects to any planets before it ingresses into a new zodiac sign. Now, there's a lot of different ways that you can qualify a moon being void. That's kind of not what today's debate is about. You could say that the moon is going to be making a sextile to Uranus and trine to Neptune, and it won't be making an opposition to Pluto. But there is this energy to Tuesday where the moon doesn't make a sextile to Uranus until really, really late in the evening. So there's nothing going on Tuesday. There's not like this, this happens kind of energy. It's just sitting there. The way I look at that is like, have you ever just daydreamed, not even daydreamed, but just checked out in the shower, where you're just, before you know it, you're like, oh, I've been in here for kind of a while. Like, you think about something, or you just like stare at something and you drift off. That's kind of the vibe on Tuesday with the moon being in Cancer. So I don't want to say that it is void, however, because it's not technically void, but that's the energy. Like, there's not much actually going to be happening in terms of, like, for example, on Tuesday, Pluto is going to ingress into Aquarius, right? That's a bigger deal, but that's an outer planet. That's so like probably not going to affect your immediate day that day, but like in your immediate day, like what is on your agenda, what is on your schedule, there's a lot of nothing going on. There's a lot of just like, and that might be good. You might need nothing on your plate so you can get some certain things done, or that you can, not have some disruptions that are going to get in your way. But what I like about it is that it's the moon in Cancer. So there is this feeling of content. There is this feeling of like, again, taking care of the necessities that we have to take care of, and just nothing is really getting in the way of that. But then Pluto goes into Aquarius. Okay, so Pluto going into Aquarius, long story. What I find interesting, though, is this is setting off the chain of events that I have been talking about. Everything changes from now until May or July of 2025. Pluto goes into Aquarius. That's the first domino. The second domino is the nodes moving into Pisces and Virgo, but that happens all the time. The nodes change signs every year and a half. But the first domino is Pluto. We're just going to go ahead and give it to the nodes because why not? Then we're going to have Neptune ingress into Aries. Then we're going to have Saturn ingress into Aries. Then we're going to have Jupiter go into Cancer. And then we're going to have Uranus go into Gemini. So that's every single planet. Pluto takes 15, 20 years to go into a new zodiac sign. Neptune takes 15 years to go into a new zodiac sign. Saturn takes 3.5. Jupiter takes a year. And Uranus takes 8. And all of these planets are moving into new zodiac signs. And that first domino starts here. So when I tell you everything's changing in the next 7, 8, 9 months, I'm not keeping count at this point. This is the first domino. What are you doing? Are you staying the same, or are you making the change? This is the week to change that first domino. And it starts with Pluto and Aquarius. And again, this isn't about like ripping up everything and just starting completely over. This is just one domino. It could be as simple as changing your mindset, changing the way that you talk to yourself, changing the way that you talk to other people. It could be as simple as that. I think on the more meta spectrum, you will see a little bit more Pluto and Aquarius stuff related to problems with society and people and mass groups of people. Again, I have not done my prediction, my election video yet because of I got too many fires going on, but I'm still holding out for like, the last Mercury retrograde was one of the craziest times in American political history. This Mercury retrograde, I don't think is going to be maybe as crazy, but I'm not going to say that this is what the election was that's it. Nothing else happens. I'm waiting for Pluto and Aquarius, the Mars retrograde, all that, and the Mercury retrograde, all that stuff. And so Pluto going to Aquarius is just kind of like, again, that domino moving in. I'll talk about that in my election video. That's not the point. But the other thing that we have on Tuesday is the moon sextiles Uranus. And there is this, so again, for the majority of the day, the moon's not doing anything. Later on that evening, though, on Tuesday, the moon will make that sextile to Uranus. The moon sextiling Uranus is just being innovative and creative on like doing something. Like again, the way I've talked about it is like trying a new soap, trying a new detergent, trying a new cleanliness thing. Anything has to do with like genuine self-care, and not the like self-care as in like eat donuts in your bed all day, but like the self-care as in like, hey, like again, like the Cancer stuff is like bathroom toiletries kind of stuff. It's sextiling Uranus. Try the vegan option, try the natural option, whatever the hell it is. That's the kind of energy, but you could put that to really anything, is just being innovative. Now, what I will say about a sextile is it's like a short burst of energy, and it's not like you're sitting down tinkering with everything and you voila, you come up with this invention. It's more of like just casually trying something new and seeing what comes out of it. So then we get to Wednesday. And Wednesday, we'll have the moon in Cancer. It's going to make that trine to Neptune. Then it's going to make a trine to the sun. And then the moon will ingress into Leo, go opposite Pluto, and then it's going to conjoin Mars. Okay, so Wednesday is kind of all over the place. Wednesday is pretty bipolar because while the moon's in Cancer and trining Neptune, like we're in our feelings, but in like a good way, like really kind of romanticizing maybe our situation or how we feel. And then the moon moon's in Cancer and the sun is trining, and the sun's in Scorpio and they're making this trine. There's like this raw energy of just being like, yeah, like I think what did I write down? I say like raw energy, and it reminds me of like after a good cry or after a good scream, like you're just kind of like naked almost in a way. That's kind of the vibe starting off on Wednesday. But then the moon ingresses into Leo and then goes opposite Pluto and conjoins Mars. There's this level of kind of pride taking over. And with the moon in Leo, we have a sense of confidence. As it goes opposite Pluto, though, there is a level of like not really giving a fuck what everybody else has to say, what everyone else wants to do, all that kind of good stuff. But as the moon conjoins Mars, there's a level of not giving a fuck. And the reason I say that weird is, like, don't get me wrong. If you don't want to give a fuck, if there's a day to not give a fuck, it's going to be Wednesday. But I wonder how this plays out later. Mars is slowing down. The moon, Mars is going to go retrograde here. It's going to go opposite Pluto. There's something interesting that I think might come up a little bit later, but I feel like the moon conjoining Mars it's going to be really, really easy to get into fights, into conflicts, just feeling a little bit, it's kind of like, if you're a guy, you get a couple glasses of whiskey in you and you go out and it's just like, you're almost looking for a fight. You're almost like, I want to kick someone's ass. That's just the energy of Wednesday. So I like Wednesday. I don't think there's anything bad about it, but I think there's like an asterisk to it where it's like, that might actually be important a little bit later on. So now we get into Thursday, and this is where I really think the unlocking of the slowing down energy really begins. Because, and again, I feel like the reason I titled this, You're Going Nowhere Fast, is Mercury is in shadow, and it is slowing down. Mercury actually stations retrograde next week. And Mars is now in Leo, and it's really going slow. Mars doesn't station for another, 2 weeks, I think? But it's really going slow. And Mars is the planet of going fast. And Mercury is also the fastest planet. So like these two planets that are all about energy and moving forward and going quickly are slowing down. But they're in these fire signs and they're trining each other. Like, again, it reminds me of, you ever seen bicyclists, going up a hill? They're in like first gear and they're going like this, but they're just moving really, really slow. That's kind of the vibe of the energy of this week. But I feel like it kicks off on Thursday because the sun ingresses into Sagittarius, makes the sextile to Pluto, and then the moon, while it's in Leo, makes a sextile to Jupiter and trines Mercury. The sun moving into Sagittarius is like, I mean, for me, I'm a Sag rising, so the sun's getting out of my 12th house, going into the first. It's like freedom. It's like your first day out of jail, like hello world. And as it sextiles Pluto, there's kind of like this like more empowering feeling to it. But on the other hand, the sun going into Sagittarius, again, wants to just go, wants to jump in the car and just drive wherever it wants to drive to. Now you add the moon in Leo, sextiling Jupiter and trining Mercury. It's like, there's something so motivating, and there's something so like clever and witty and fun and confident about Thursday. So Thursday's great. Like, let me be very clear. I really, really like Thursday. I think Thursday's the best day of this week. But in the background, things are going really slow. Like, you want to move faster. But again, one of the titles I wanted to give this weekly was like, in order to speed up, you have to kind of slow down. I said this a lot with Jupiter and Taurus, but like slow is smooth and smooth is fast. I don't necessarily think that's the energy. It's kind of like, hey, when you do things really, really quickly, like you might get a little bit sloppy, you might be a little bit all over the place. It's like, hey, what if we started concentrating a little bit? Or in order to pick up speed, we have to slow down a little bit. That's the vibe here. But I like Thursday with the moon making that sextile to Jupiter earlier in the day, and then it makes that trine to Mercury. There's something about just being confident and just saying how it is. I mean, I just really like Thursday, to be honest with you. And that continues into Friday. Like, let me be really clear. I really like this week, but the thing I can't get over is like, everything's slowing down. Everything's slowing down. And the way I would also look at this week is, this is how we prepare for 2025. Like, really, I would argue 2025 doesn't start in January. I've already told you guys that, and I'm going to make it very clear. The year ahead horoscopes are coming out soon. There's going to be a lot. And by the way, the extended version of the rising sign horoscopes for the year are going to be over on my website for my members only. So if you want the full version of it, because again, there's just so much going on, go over to my membership, become a member. You get all types of goodies as well. But those are coming out soon. There's just a lot. So anyway, this week, as Mars and Mercury slow down and they begin to go retrograde later on, this is like the start of 2025, but it's a lot about making these changes because I don't really think the beginning of 2025, like the initiatory, like new year, doesn't start until the spring because there's just one thing after another that happens in the spring. And right now is about like, prelude. It's like a prelude. It's like a getting ready to launch as we get into 2025. So we get into Friday. The moon is going to make a square to Uranus early on in the morning, and then Venus will make a sextile to Saturn. That's going to be our first highlight, and then the moon will ingress into Virgo. So the moon squaring Uranus. There's going to be some sort of an early morning disruption. Like if you live here, like I'm moving, by the way. There has been a homeless man who comes out in the middle of the night like Batman, and he just screams. He doesn't scream anything. Like he's not saying any cuss words. He's just screaming, and that's what he does, and it wakes me up. Or for example, like that's like this is the moon. Like the moon squaring Uranus is like your neighbor's car alarm going off early on in the morning, and it doesn't turn off, and you wake up. That's the vibe of the moon squaring Uranus early on in the morning on Friday. But then Venus makes a sextile to Saturn also in the morning and / into the early afternoon. I love this. It's business casual. Venus making a sextile to Saturn is like, hey, this is fun. I'm enjoying this. I'm getting work done. It's sextiling Saturn and Pisces. I don't even really read it as Saturn and Pisces. I just read it as Venus and Capricorn sextiling the ruler of Capricorn, which is Saturn. And there's something, it's good for fun and discipline. It's very business casual, work flirt. Something I've been writing down with, I think I wrote this down in the December game plan video that's going to be on my website for members only is, there's a lot of the energy going on over this next couple weeks of Patrick Bateman. Like we wake up, we work out, we're obsessive narcissists. We're all obsessive narcissists, by the way. I'm tired of people like, oh, I dated a narcissist. You were probably a narcissist too. That's okay. Just accept it. Now we're focused on our looks. We're focused on perfection. Sure, we might murder homeless people, in the background that nobody knows about, but we're also really good at business. That's the vibe of this Venus and Capricorn sextiling Saturn and Pisces is like, again, it's very business casual. It's very work flirt. It's very like getting things done in a professional boundaried way. Like being able to have fun within a set of rules is probably what I like, but it's Saturn and Pisces. The rules are malleable. Now, we do get later on into Friday evening and the moon ingresses into Virgo. There's a part of this that I like at first. And the first part of it is, hey, a little bit more focused on, paying attention to details, paying attention to specifics. I feel like Friday is a work later into the night kind of night. But then we get into Saturday, and on Saturday, the moon, while it's still in Virgo, is going to make that opposition to Saturn and Pisces, and then that's when it will make a trine to Venus. What's great about Saturday is the moon, as it's in Virgo, opposite Saturn and Pisces, just seems like working throughout Saturday, trying to get these little pieces together. There is an energy of having to know when to stop. Like when it comes to, I was just listening to, I think it was either Beat It or Thriller. It was a Michael Jackson song that they did 82 different mixes of, and they ended up going with the second mix. So again, like, I don't know if you make music, but like 82 mixes is like, that's a gigantic number. Like 10 mixes is kind of a lot in my opinion, but like 82 mixes is like, wow, that's kind of a lot. And that's almost obsessive. And what are you really doing differently in 82 mixes? But they ended up going with the second one. And I bring that up with the moon and Virgo going opposite Saturn and Pisces. Like you can keep making all these little tweaks, but knowing when to stop, knowing when the vibe is right, I think is really important for that. And so when the moon goes opposite Saturn, it's a little bit stressful, but when we get to the moon making that trine to Venus, there's like this fun, cool party atmosphere, but it's very like, it's not like Sagittarius Leo where it's like, messy, sloppy, drunk. It's like moon and Virgo, Venus and Capricorn, like very put together, Michelin star restaurant dinner, private, party somewhere else where everyone's like an elite. That's the vibe of Saturday night. So I think Saturday night is really cool to make some plans to do something fun. But then we get to Sunday. Sunday is a little bit complicated because the moon's going to be in Virgo and it's first going to make a square to Jupiter, and it's then going to also make a square to Mercury. But then the moon makes a trine to Uranus and goes opposite Neptune. There's a lot of overwhelming feeling on Sunday. Like you're feeling pretty good throughout this week. And then we get to Sunday and like you've had too much caffeine. You're also on Adderall and you haven't had anything to eat. And now you're just kind of like, whoa, there's so much going on. I don't know what to do. My mind's just racing everywhere because the moon in Virgo wants to be organized and detailed, right? But as it makes that square to Jupiter and Gemini is like, well, we can do this and we can do that. And there's this to do and there's that to do. And then the moon's like, okay, like that's a little bit a lot. But then the moon makes a square to Mercury and Sag where like you can't concentrate. Is anyone else having an issue concentrating lately? Like, and I'm not just saying like, oh, Cameron, well, I have ADHD, I can't concentrate, period. I'm like, no, specifically right now, in this time frame over this past week and this next week, I can't concentrate to save my life. Or at least it's been very bipolar where like there's moments where I'm just like locked in and there's other moments where I can't concentrate to save my life. That's kind of the vibe on Sunday. There's a little bit too much to do and it's going to be hard to prioritize. However, what I do like is the moon then makes a trine to Uranus and goes opposite Neptune, where again, the moon in Virgo is trining Uranus in Taurus. There is I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to have a creative way to fix my issue, like whatever it is that is, whether that's locking yourself in a padded room just to get your work done or whatever it is. But there's something about feeling too overwhelmed, not being able to prioritize on Sunday. Again, maybe Sunday is like, you need to clean your house, you need to do your bills, but you don't want to sit on the couch. The moon trining Uranus is like at some point you just get motivated to get up and you hustle and get all that done. And then the moon goes opposite Neptune. There's a little bit of a 2 locked in. Again, when I look at oppositions of Virgo and Pisces, again, I really think about how many more tweaks to things is really all that important versus the overall vibe. And again, think of like music. And if you don't know anything about mixing and mastering in music, essentially it's the worst, but it's where the magic happens. And you can make all these little tweaks all you want. Typically, it'll make it worse though. Or for example, for the ladies, since 80% of my audience is women, eyebrows. You could pick and pluck your eyebrows all day long, but then you're going to look like, Britney, like you're going to look like a 2002 model where you just have like pencil eyebrows and then they never come back. That's kind of the vibe of Virgo and Pisces oppositions. And the moon in Virgo is a little bit too focused, a little bit too on the details that it's not seeing the bigger picture and it's distorting things, if that makes sense. Like when we really hyper focus on certain aspects of ourselves or certain aspects of our work, we're not seeing the big picture. And so what that does is it ends up distorting what we're actually looking at. So on Sunday, you have to know when to drop it, if that makes sense. Like you'll get a solution with the moon shining Uranus, and then you have to figure out when to drop it. But that leads us to next week. Mercury stations retrograde next week. I'll have a Mercury retrograde out for you guys. Make sure you watch it. The sun makes a trine to Mars, which I like, but when the sun makes a trine to Mars, that means Mars is about to go retrograde. So it's like, how good is it? And then we have the new moon in Sagittarius, which is like, the new moon in Sagittarius, I think is really good for figuring out this Mercury retrograde situation. But again, this week in the background, it's like, yeah, this is happening. This is happening. This is happening. But we're not really going all that fast. And it's really weird. So make sure you guys subscribe, get tuned in for next week, and I'll be seeing you guys next week.